videos that I recorded and put up onto Classroom so that you could keep up with the story. Addy has gone outside because he saw something moving around, and it was a little pussy cat. He's about to step back to the building, but one of the bluches has got hold of his leg. I desperately try to pull my leg away from the blucher, but its grip is crushing. It anchors me to the spot. I look around frantically, still clutching the cat to me, trying to find a way to escape the blucher's deadly hold. The blucher's squeezing me now, so tightly that I wonder if my leg will simply break from the pressure. I cry out and bury my head in the cat's silken fur. I think this might be the end. The popping of the bluches is so loud that it sounds like the whole world is exploding. Just like when you hear thunder and it seems to make the walls of the room vibrate a little bit. Except I think I can feel the sound in my chest, in my ribs, and deep inside my body, in my lungs. Suddenly, I hear a sort of fizz and hiss, and the pressure on my leg is lessening and lessening. In front of me stands Obi, his face obscured by scarves and goggles, and behind me, I see the shriveled, dead body of the blucher. Obi gestures with his arms to follow him, and I imagine that if he was able to, he would be shouting with all his might, "Get inside, Addy, get inside." I run to him as fast as I can, although my leg is throbbing and sore. Obi flings open the door of the tower. I run in, and he slams it behind me. It closes with a loud bang. I stand with my back to the door until I hear the last of the explosions, and then there is silence. Obi throws the empty bucket in his hand to the ground, and it clangs noisily and rolls until it comes to a stop. I try hard to slow down my breathing, which is coming in ragged bursts, and I try to take in what has just happened outside. It was all down to Obi. He threw a bucket of salt on the blucher that was attacking me. He saved my life. Obi pulls off my scarves and pulls off the mask and the goggles. I manage to say, "I'm okay, Obi, I'm okay," but I don't think he can hear me because he's pulling off my rucksack and rushing into the little room off the corridor to grab a towel to dry my face with. The cat jumps down from my arms and now sits by the rucksack looking up at us. I have an awful feeling that Obi is cross with me. It starts in my stomach and goes all the way up to make a lump in my throat and an ache in my head. I wait to hear what his first words will be. I'm scared he's going to shout. He looks angry and his face is twisted up so much that I can't see his eyes properly. "What happened?" he says. It's hard to hear him because he's speaking through a scarf which is covering his mouth. "What happened?" he says again, and I feel the awful feeling leak out of me. He isn't going to shout. He's going to listen. I tell him about what I saw when I was looking out the windows, how I thought it might be someone who needed help, that I'd run down to get myself ready to help, and that there hadn't been time to go and get him or find Dory. I describe how the blucher burst all over me, and how it hadn't hurt, and how one of them wrapped a vine around my leg to trap me, and that I couldn't find anyone out there in the end, apart from just one thing. And I pointed to the cat, which is still sitting patiently at our feet, as if it's waiting for the story to turn to it. "What are you going to call him, Addy?" Dory asks me as she scratches the pink skin on his tummy. The cat is lying on his back in a little patch of sunlight on the sofa, in between both of us. Dory was delighted when she heard of how I'd rescued him. "You are made of stern stuff, Addy," she tells me, and she insists on feeding the cat one of our tins of tuna before Obi stops her and says that cat food will do well enough. Obi sends me off to a couple of flats whose owners used to have cats, and soon I have filled my rucksack with tins of cat food and bags of little fish-shaped biscuits. I also find a litter tray and a sack of tiny white stones to fill it with. The litter is heavy, and I have to keep stopping to rest while I'm carrying it. I wonder about asking Obi to help me, but even though he didn't shout at me, I think he's still a little bit annoyed that I left the tower and brought back a cat with me, so I don't ask him. "I'm not sure. What do you think?" I say. "How about Bluchy?" says Dory, "because he survived the bluchers. He's quite the hero, isn't he?" How about Mystery?" says Obi. "Why cats? What is it about him that stops the poison from affecting him?" He looks at the cat suspiciously and then shouts, "Oh," as it jumps right onto his lap. Get off, says Obi, but the cat ignores him and settles himself down comfortably. Obi's right. It's odd that the spores didn't kill him. I wonder if there are other animals out there who have not been affected either. I can't think what he should be called. There are lots of names that I could have easily called him, like Smokey or Misty, but he's a soft grey colour. the dark grey stripes from his nose to his tail. But I've always had this funny idea that animals already have names that their mums have given them, and when humans come along and give them a new one, they don't like it very much. I know I wouldn't like being called something other than Addy. I think he needs to show me what his name is, and then that's what we'll call him. But I feel a little bit silly telling this to Dory, because no one else seems to think it. You must name him, Dory says. He's yours now. It will come to you. Look how he follows you around all over the room. He knows he belongs to you. Dory starts humming the same tune she was singing this morning and goes into the kitchen to make some tea for us. Even Ben seems to like the cat. He came to Dory's too to see how I was, but he hasn't left. He spent a long time tying bits of wallpaper and corks to a bit of string, which he's dragging across the floor for the cat to chase. It's the first time that all four of us have been together without having a meal to eat before us. There's normally so much to do that we don't really spend time together, unless we're eating. My skin still feels like a little bit scratchy from the antifungal powder that Obi made me put on. It turns out that the little room next to the outside door is where we get decontaminated if we ever go outside. That basically means to get the spores off if there are any on us somehow. Obi wrote it down for me to put in my book when we get back upstairs. Obi had set up the room just before he went to the other tower where he found Ben and Evie. First, you have to take off all your clothes and put them in a plastic bag, which you then put into another plastic bag and then into another bin bag. When you're completely naked and feeling a bit cold by then, you close your mouth and eyes really, really tight and cover yourself with the antifungal powder. And I mean really cover yourself, all over. And then, when you think you're done and finished, you do it again. I looked as white as anything. By the way, Obi was telling me what to do from outside the room by shouting through the doorway. He didn't see me do any of this. Then you have to wait for 10 minutes, just in case. That was the worst bit, because you just want to go home and sit on the sofa or go and have something to eat at this point. But you had to just stand and wait in the middle of the room, feeling shivery for what feels like a long time. But it's a small price to pay for not bringing spores in, I guess. And at least I had the cat with me, who also needed a good coating of powder. He kept licking it off, though, and then shaking his head afterwards as if to say, "This tastes bad, but I can't bear to have this powder on me." After that, you take one of the towels out of the cupboard to cover yourself with, and you can come out. Obi decontaminated himself after me, and while he did that, I went through the swing doors into Obi's room, where he told me to help myself to some clothes. They were all far too big, of course, but it was just up until I went back upstairs to get some of my own. When Obi was dressed and he'd sealed up the doors and the plastic sheet properly again, he decided it was a good idea to salt the corridor floor. Just in case, he said. He was saying those words a lot today. He spent a little bit of time pushing the salt over the floor to cover it, and then he came up to Dory's flat where we've been ever since. Obi didn't speak to me a lot while we were clearing up the basement. I wanted to say, "Are you cross with me, Obi?" But I couldn't quite bring myself to say the words. In the end, I just asked him a question. I asked about something that was on my mind, because I thought it might be on his too, and I wondered if that was why he wasn't talking. "Obi?" "Yes." "Why did that Blucher hold on to me like that? They don't eat humans. So why does it hold on to my leg?" "Yes, I was wondering about that too," Obi said. "I wonder if it had something to do with that little friend of yours." "What, Gaia?" "No, Addy," said Obi gently. "The cat. You were holding him when the Blucher attacked you, right?" I nodded. We both looked at him playing with his own shadow in a square of sunlight coming through one of the windows. "Let's have a closer look at him. Go and get him, Addy." I went over and picked him up. He immediately started purring into my shoulder. He was such a friendly cat. "Now let's see. What's this?" He fingered a thin, grubby red collar around the cat's neck. He took it off carefully and moved it around in his hands until we could see the little metal buckle. "I'm not sure, but I think they were after that." "But it's so tiny," I said. "They're hungry," Obi said grimly. We didn't speak about it again. We spent the rest of the afternoon just sitting in Dory's flat, eating a tin of ginger biscuits that I found a week ago and playing with the cat. Obi and Ben look really tired for some reason, and they sit slumped on the sofa for quite a while as Dory fusses over the circle of bruising around my legs where the Blucher had hold of me. To take my mind off it, Dory makes us all sit around the table together and play a new card game, which she calls Memory. She lays out all the cards face down on the table, so its entire surface is covered. Then you have to turn over one card for everyone to see, and then pick up another to see if you can find the same card in a different suit. But if you find a pair, then you take those and put them on your pile. The game goes on and on. Ben and Obi aren't very good at it, and Dory keeps finding all the pairs. Then suddenly, Obi starts picking out lots of pairs, and he has quite a large pile, and then Ben and I find a few to each. When we finish the game, everyone gets quite excited about who will pick up the last few cards. Ben laughs out loud when Obi picks up the wrong card. The cat lies sleeping on my lap, warm and soft, and in those few hours I forget that only earlier that day I'd been quite sure that I was about to die.